She trusted the wrong people and lost everything. Her fiancé. Her best friend. Her future. Keisha's heart shattered the night she caught them together, and she swore she'd never let anyone close again. But years later, fate had other plans. Now she works for Stephen Moore, a billionaire who sees past her walls. When her past crashes back into her life, threatening to destroy everything she's rebuilt, Keisha must choose between protecting her heart and risking it all for real love. This is the story of betrayal that burns, resilience that rebuilds, and a love that redeems. Will she let fear win, or will she finally claim the life she deserves? Watch until the very end to see how karma comes full circle. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our powerful stories of transformation and triumph. The city lights blurred past the taxi window as she rode from LAX toward her new apartment in Silicon Valley, her hands trembling despite her best efforts to stay calm. 3 years had passed since she fled Los Angeles with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart, running from the wreckage of a life she thought she'd built. 3 years of surviving in Seattle, working menial jobs, therapy sessions where she learned to breathe again, and endless nights convincing herself that trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. Now she was back, not broken anymore, but different. Harder. Smarter. A woman who knew that the only person she could truly rely on was herself. Her phone buzzed with a message from her new employer confirming her start date at MoreTech. Executive assistant to Stephen Moore himself. The job posting had been almost too good to be true, the salary more than she'd earned in 2 years combined in Seattle. She'd almost deleted the email, convinced it was a scam, until the video interview with MoreTech's HR director proved otherwise. Keisha had spent the entire interview keeping her composure, answering questions with the kind of measured professionalism she'd perfected over the last 3 years. She didn't smile too much. Didn't share personal stories. Didn't let them see the scars. And somehow, that's exactly what got her the job. The HR director had said something that stuck with her during the final interview. Mr. Moore doesn't need someone who will tell him what he wants to hear. He needs someone who can handle pressure without falling apart. Your references say you're unshakable. Are you? Keisha had looked directly into the camera and said, I've already survived the worst betrayal of my life. Corporate pressure doesn't scare me. She got the offer letter 2 days later. Now, settling into her minimalist one-bedroom apartment with its sleek furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the tech campus sprawl, Keisha reminded herself why she'd taken this risk. She'd come back to California not to confront her past, but to prove she'd transcended it. Los Angeles was 2 hours south. She had no intention of going back there. No intention of seeing anyone from her old life. That resolution lasted exactly 2 weeks. Her first day at MoreTech had been a baptism by fire. Stephen Moore was everything the tech blog said he was: brilliant, demanding, utterly intolerant of incompetence, and emotionally unavailable. He was also younger than she'd expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to calculate the worth of everything they landed on. Their first interaction set the tone for everything that followed. Keisha had arrived at his corner office at precisely 7 in the morning, as instructed. Stephen was already there, tie loosened, surrounded by 3 monitors displaying code, financial projections, and what looked like architectural plans. He'd glanced up briefly. You're the new assistant. Keisha James. Yes. I go through assistants quickly. The last one cried. The one before that quit via text message. Think you can handle it? Keisha had set her tablet down and met his gaze directly. Mr. Moore, I'm not here to cry or quit via text. I'm here to make your professional life run smoothly so you can focus on whatever genius-level work you do. If you have concerns about my capabilities, we can address them now. Otherwise, tell me what you need, and I'll make it happen. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. I need my calendar reorganized. The system my last assistant used was idiotic. I need coffee black from the place on 4th Street, not the trash in our break room. And I need you to sit in on the board meeting in 45 minutes and take notes because half these people talk just to hear themselves, and I need to know what was actually said versus what they'll claim was said later. Done. Anything else? Don't take it personally when I'm an asshole. It's not about you. I won't. Is that everything? He'd studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. That's everything. For now. That had been 6 months ago. 6 months of 18-hour days, international calls at midnight, learning to anticipate his needs before he articulated them, and slowly, carefully, realizing that Stephen Moore's emotional distance wasn't arrogance. It was protection. She recognized it because she wore the same armor. They'd developed a rhythm. A partnership built on mutual respect and unspoken understanding. He never asked about her personal life. She never volunteered information. They worked, they executed, they built Moretech's expansion into new markets with ruthless efficiency. Until the night everything shifted. They'd been working late on an acquisition deal, just the two of them in his office, the city glittering 40 stories below. Stephen had loosened his tie hours ago, rolled up his sleeves, and Keisha had kicked off her heels under the desk, both of them fueled by coffee and the adrenaline of closing a deal worth hundreds of millions. Read me the terms one more time, Stephen had said, rubbing his eyes. Keisha had pulled up the document. They're asking for a 15% stake retention, board representation, and guaranteed employment contracts for their top 3 executives for minimum 5 years. That's a power play. They think we need them more than they need us. Do we? Stephen had looked at her, surprised. What do you think? It was the first time he'd asked her opinion on strategy rather than logistics. Keisha had considered carefully. I think their tech is impressive, but not irreplaceable. And I think giving them board representation opens the door to internal conflicts that could stall your vision. But I also think walking away sends a message that you're inflexible, which could hurt future negotiations. So what would you do? Counter with 10% stake retention, no board seat, but offer them advisory roles with real influence on product development. Give them ego satisfaction without structural power. And reduce the employment contracts to 3 years with performance benchmarks. If they're as good as they claim, they'll meet them. Stephen had stared at her for a long moment, then slowly smiled. Actually smiled. That's exactly what I was thinking. Then why ask me? Because I wanted to know if you could see it too. He'd leaned back in his chair. You're wasted as an assistant, you know that? Keisha had felt her chest tighten. Praise felt dangerous. It felt like the beginning of trust, and trust was what had destroyed her. I'm good at my job. That's enough. Is it? It has to be. Something in her tone must have warned him off, because Stephen had nodded and shifted back to business. But after that night, things were different. He started asking her opinion more often. Started actually listening. Started staying in the office later, even after the work was done, just talking about markets and innovation and the loneliness of building something everyone wanted to either control or destroy. Keisha found herself talking too, carefully, about business and strategy. Never about the past. Never about why a woman with her intelligence and instincts was content to remain in a support role. Until the tech summit in Los Angeles. Moretech was the keynote sponsor, and Stephen was delivering the opening address. Keisha had tried to find an excuse not to go, but there was no reasonable way to avoid it. So she packed her bags, armor firmly in place, and told herself that Los Angeles was a big city. The chances of running into anyone from her old life were minimal. She was wrong. The summit was held at a luxury hotel in downtown LA, the kind of place where tech money met old money and everyone pretended the lines didn't exist. Keisha had coordinated every detail of Stephen's presentation, arranged his meetings, and was finally taking a breath in the lobby bar when she saw them. Lucas and Gloria, her former fiancé and former best friend, walking through the lobby like they owned it. Gloria's hand was tucked into Lucas's arm, a massive diamond ring catching the light. They were laughing about something, comfortable in a way that made Keisha's stomach turn because she remembered when she'd been that comfortable with both of them. Before they'd destroyed her. She turned away instinctively, hoping they hadn't seen her, but Gloria's voice cut through the ambient noise like a blade. Keisha? Oh my God, is that you? Every muscle in Keisha's body locked. She could walk away. Should walk away. But something in her refused to run anymore. So she turned, face carefully neutral, and faced the two people she'd once loved most in the world. Gloria looked exactly the same, beautiful and vibrant, but there was something brittle in her smile now. Lucas had aged, subtle lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 3 years ago. He was staring at Keisha like he'd seen a ghost. Gloria! Lucas! Keisha's voice was steady, professional, as if she were greeting clients instead of her destroyers. I can't believe it's you! Gloria gushed, moving closer. Keisha noticed Lucas hung back slightly. You look amazing. Different. What are you doing here? Working. Working? At the tech summit? I didn't know you were in tech now. I'm an executive assistant at More Tech. Gloria's eyes widened, and something ugly flickered across her face before she masked it with enthusiasm. More tech? Wow, that's impressive. I mean, for an assistant position. There it was. The subtle dig. The reminder that Gloria had always needed Keisha to be less than her. It pays well, Keisha said simply. Lucas finally spoke, his voice rough. Keisha, you look good. Really good. I'm glad you're doing well. Are you? The words came out sharper than she intended. An uncomfortable silence fell. Gloria's grip on Lucas's arm tightened. We should catch up properly. Maybe dinner while you're in town. I'm busy. Come on, Keisha. It's been 3 years. Surely we can be adults about everything that happened. Adults about everything that happened. As if walking in on your fiancé and best friend in bed together was just a misunderstanding that time could smooth over. I am being an adult, Keisha said quietly. I'm being an adult who knows when to walk away from toxic people. Gloria's face flushed. That's not fair. You don't know what it was like for us. The guilt, the struggle with our feelings. We didn't mean to hurt you. You just meant to sleep together behind my back. Got it. Keisha, please. Lucas stepped forward, and she could see genuine anguish in his face. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Every day I'm sorry. You don't get to apologize to make yourself feel better, Lucas. You made your choice. Live with it. She turned to walk away, but Gloria's voice followed her, louder now, drawing attention. You always were so cold, Keisha. So focused on your career, your plans, your perfect little life. Maybe if you'd actually been present in your relationship, Lucas wouldn't have needed someone who actually saw him. Keisha stopped. Turned back slowly. When she spoke, her voice was ice. I was planning our wedding, Gloria. I was working extra shifts to help pay for the life Lucas and I were building together. And while I was doing that, you were in my home, in my bed, with my fiancé. Don't you dare rewrite history to make yourself the hero of this story. You're not. You're just a woman who was so insecure and jealous that you had to steal your best friend's life to feel valuable. Gloria's face went white, then red. People in the lobby were definitely watching now. I didn't steal anything. Lucas chose me. No, Keisha said softly. Lucas settled for what was easy. There's a difference. I hope you're happy together. I really do. Because I learned something from what you did to me. I learned that some people aren't capable of real loyalty or love. They're just capable of taking what they want and calling it fate. She walked away before either of them could respond, her heart hammering but her head high. She made it to the elevator, to her hotel room, closed the door and locked it before the trembling started. She'd done it. She'd faced them and hadn't fallen apart. Hadn't cried or screamed or begged for answers. She'd been strong. So why did she feel like she was drowning? The knock on her door 20 minutes later startled her. She checked the peephole and saw Steven standing in the hallway, still in his suit from the presentation, looking concerned. She opened the door. Mr. Moore? I heard there was a scene in the lobby. Someone said you were involved. Are you all right? I'm fine. Keisha. He said her name differently than he usually did, softer. You're shaking. She looked down at her hands and realized he was right. It's nothing. Just ran into some people from my past. The past that made you leave California 3 years ago? She met his eyes, surprised. You knew about that? I read your background check. There was a 3-month gap in your employment history around the time you left Los Angeles. I'm good at reading between lines. He paused. Can I come in? She should say no. Should maintain professional boundaries. But she was so tired of being alone with this pain, so she stepped aside and let him enter. Stephen sat in the chair by the window, and Keisha sat on the edge of the bed, maintaining distance between them. You don't have to tell me anything, he said. But I'm here if you want to talk. And maybe it was the kindness in his voice, or the fact that he wasn't demanding anything, just offering space, but Keisha found herself talking. She told him about Lucas, about the wedding she'd planned, about Gloria who'd been her best friend since college. She told him about coming home early with surprise takeout to find them together, about how Gloria had looked her in the eye and said she'd fallen in love, like that made the betrayal noble somehow. She told him about how Lucas had stayed silent while Gloria spun the narrative to their entire social circle, painting Keisha as the cold, ambitious woman who'd driven her fiancé into another woman's arms. About losing her apartment, her friends, her entire life in the span of 2 weeks. I left because staying meant watching them build a life with what they'd stolen from me, she said quietly. I couldn't do it. So I ran to Seattle, worked terrible jobs, went to therapy, and learned to trust absolutely no one. Is that why you're so guarded at work? It's why I'm guarded everywhere. People are capable of terrible things, even people you love. Especially people you love. Stephen was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, My ex-wife cheated on me with my business partner. Took me for everything she could in the divorce and tried to turn my board against me. I know what betrayal feels like. Keisha looked up, surprised. She'd read articles about Stephen Moore's divorce, but the details had always been sealed by NDAs and lawyers. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me that vulnerability is weakness in business and in life. Or at least, that's what I told myself. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But watching you work, watching how you navigate everything with such strength and control, I realized something. You're not weak because you were betrayed. You're strong because you survived it. And you're still here, still fighting, still building something better. I don't feel strong right now. Strength isn't the absence of pain, Keisha. It's the refusal to let pain define you. He stood up. Those people in the lobby, they don't get to take anything more from you. You've already won by becoming someone they can't touch anymore. After he left, Keisha sat in the dark hotel room and let herself cry for the first time in years. Not because she was weak, but because maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to heal. The next morning, she returned to the summit with her armor back in place. She avoided the lobby, stayed focused on managing Stephen's schedule, and thought she'd successfully navigated the rest of the event until she found Gloria waiting outside the conference room where Stephen was speaking. We need to talk, Gloria said. No, we don't. Please, Keisha. Just 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Keisha stepped aside to a quiet corner. What do you want, Gloria? I want you to know that I'm happy. Lucas and I are happy. We're married now, and we're building a good life together. Good for you. But I also want you to know that it kills me what happened between us. You were my best friend, and I miss you. Keisha stared at her in disbelief. You miss me? You destroyed our friendship when you slept with my fiancé. You don't get to miss me. It wasn't that simple. I tried to fight my feelings. I really did. But Lucas and I had this connection, and once we acknowledged it, there was no going back. You could have told me. You could have been honest before you betrayed me. Would you have listened? You were so wrapped up in wedding plans and your career goals. When was I supposed to tell you? When would have been the right time to say I was in love with your fiancé? Before you slept with him? Keisha's voice rose. Before you destroyed 3 years of friendship and trust. Before you made me question every good thing I thought I knew about the people I loved. Gloria's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, but I'm trying to make peace with it. Make peace with it on your own time. I don't owe you absolution, Gloria. I don't owe you closure or friendship or anything else. You made your choices. Now live with the consequences. Is that why you're here? Working for some billionaire, playing assistant when you're smart enough to run your own company? Are you living with your consequences too, Keisha? Or are you just hiding? The words hit like a physical blow. Before Keisha could respond, a voice cut through the tension. Is there a problem here? Stephen stood a few feet away, having emerged from the conference room. His expression was carefully neutral, but Keisha could see the ice in his eyes as he looked at Gloria. Gloria straightened, suddenly aware of who she was talking to. Mr. Moore. I'm Gloria Matthews. I was just catching up with an old friend. Keisha doesn't look like she's enjoying this reunion. I suggest you leave. I was just going. Gloria glanced at Keisha one more time. Think about what I said. After she left, Stephen turned to Keisha. Are you okay? I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. He checked his watch. I have 2 hours before my next meeting. Let's get out of here. They ended up at a quiet cafe near the ocean, far from the summit crowds. Stephen ordered coffee for both of them and sat across from Keisha in the outdoor seating area, where the sound of waves provided cover for their conversation. She's wrong, you know, he said without preamble. About what? About you hiding. You're not hiding. You're rebuilding. There's a difference. Is there? Because sometimes I wonder if she's right. If I'm just playing it safe, staying in a support role instead of taking risks because I'm too afraid to trust anyone or anything again. Is that what you think you're doing? Keisha stared out at the ocean. I don't know anymore. 3 years ago, I had dreams. I wanted to start my own consulting firm, help small businesses scale, make a real impact. But after everything fell apart, those dreams felt naive. Childish. Like something the old Keisha wanted, and she doesn't exist anymore. Or maybe those dreams are still valid, and you're just not ready to pursue them yet. Healing isn't linear, Keisha. You get to take your time. When did you know you were ready? After your divorce? Stephen laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not sure I am ready. I threw myself into work, built more tech bigger and more successful, proved to everyone that my ex-wife and former partner didn't break me. But being successful and being healed are different things. Are you healed? No. He met her eyes. But lately, I've been thinking maybe I don't want to be this closed off forever. Maybe there's something worth risking the walls for. The air between them shifted, charged with something Keisha didn't want to name. She looked away first. We should get back to the summit. Keisha. Please don't. Whatever you're about to say, please don't. Why? Because I can't. Her voice broke slightly. I can't do this again, Stephen. I can't trust someone and risk having them destroy me. I barely survived the first time. I'm not Lucas. I'm not going to hurt you. That's what I thought about him too. That's what I thought about Gloria. I was wrong about everyone. Stephen reached across the table and took her hand. She should pull away. Should maintain professional boundaries. But his touch was warm and steady, and she realized how starved she'd been for human connection that didn't require armor. I can't promise you won't get hurt, he said quietly. Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise that if you give me a chance, I'll be honest with you. I'll respect you. And I'll never make you question your worth or your value. You're my boss. I know. And if this crosses a line you're not comfortable with, we can pretend this conversation never happened. But Keisha, I've worked with dozens of assistants, hundreds of employees, and I've never met anyone who understands me the way you do. Who challenges me the way you do. Who makes me want to be better than the bitter, closed-off person my ex-wife turned me into. Keisha felt tears threatening. I'm scared. Me too. What if we try this and it falls apart? What if I lose my job and my stability and everything I've rebuilt? What if we try this and it works? What if we both finally find someone who gets it, who's been through the fire and came out the other side? She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have this. Could have something real and honest and good. But fear was a powerful thing, and it had kept her safe for 3 years. I need time to think. Stephen nodded and released her hand. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. They returned to the summit in silence, but something fundamental had shifted between them. Keisha could feel it in every glance, every accidentally on purpose brush of hands, every late-night work session that felt less like work and more like an excuse to be near each other. 1 week after they returned to Silicon Valley, Keisha's carefully constructed world began to crumble again. She was reviewing contracts in Stephen's office when his phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, and his face went dark. When did this happen? Who else knows? He listened again. No, don't release a statement yet. I'll handle it. He hung up and looked at Keisha. We have a problem. Someone leaked confidential information about our upcoming product launch to our biggest competitor. The leak came from inside the company. How is that possible? Only 5 people had access to that information. 6 if you count me. Which means one of my senior executives is a corporate spy. For the next 72 hours, they worked around the clock to contain the damage and identify the leak. Keisha coordinated with legal, IT, and security while Stephen dealt with the board and investors. It was brutal, exhausting work, and they survived on coffee and adrenaline. On the 3rd night, at 2 a.m, they finally had their answer. The leak had come from Marcus Chin, Morteca's VP of Product Development. But the trail didn't end there. The information had been sold to their competitor through an intermediary, a consultant named Lucas Matthews. Keisha stared at the name on the screen, her blood turning to ice. You know him, Stephen said. It wasn't a question. He's my ex-fiancé. The one who cheated on you with your best friend. Yes. Stephen's jaw tightened. This can't be a coincidence. It's not. Keisha's mind was racing. Gloria saw me at the summit. She saw me with you. She knew I worked for Mortec. She must have told Lucas. And he what? Decided to sabotage my company to hurt you. Or to prove I'm not as untouchable as I pretended to be. Or because Gloria pushed him to. She always was competitive, always needed to win. Keisha stood up, pacing. I brought this to your door, Stephen. My past, my mistakes. If I hadn't been here, if Gloria hadn't seen me, none of this would have happened. You didn't bring anything to my door. Lucas and whoever hired him made the choice to commit corporate espionage. That's on them, not you. But it affects you because of me. Keisha. Stephen stood and grabbed her shoulders gently, forcing her to look at him. This is not your fault. Do you hear me? You are not responsible for other people's choices. Not Lucas's, not Gloria's, not anyone's. They did this. Not you. She wanted to believe him, but the guilt was overwhelming. What are you going to do? I'm going to destroy them legally, professionally, and financially. And then I'm going to rebuild what they tried to take. His expression softened slightly. But first, I need to know if you're okay. I don't know what I am right now. Then let's find out together. The next morning, Stephen called an emergency board meeting. Keisha sat in the corner, taking notes, as he laid out the evidence of corporate espionage with clinical precision. Marcus Chin was escorted from the building by security. Legal moved to press criminal charges. But it was what happened after the board meeting that changed everything. Stephen called Keisha into his office and closed the door. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Did you know Lucas was involved in consulting work with tech companies? No. When we were together, he worked in marketing for a beverage company. I had no idea he'd moved into tech consulting. Did you ever discuss my company or our work with him? Even accidentally? The question felt like a betrayal, but Keisha understood why he had to ask. No. I haven't spoken to Lucas in 3 years, not until the summit. And I didn't discuss your business with anyone. Stephen nodded, relief visible in his face. I had to ask. I know. She swallowed hard. Do you want my resignation? What? No. Why would I want that? Because I'm a liability now. Because my past is interfering with your business. Because it would be easier if I wasn't here. Easier for who? Stephen moved closer. Keisha, you're the least liable person I know. You've been nothing but loyal and competent and brilliant since the day you started. I'm not losing that because your ex-fiancé is a criminal. But the board answers to me. And I'm telling them that you're staying, and if anyone has a problem with that, they can leave. He paused. Unless you want to leave. If this is too much, if being here puts you in a position you can't handle, I'll understand. I'll give you outstanding references, help you find something else. But please don't leave because you think you're not wanted. You are. By me. Very much. Keisha felt tears slipping down her cheeks despite her best efforts to hold them back. I don't want to leave. Then stay. What if Lucas retaliates? What if Gloria spreads more rumors? What if this gets worse before it gets better? Then we'll handle it. Together. Stephen reached up and gently wiped her tears away. I meant what I said at the cafe. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not letting you carry this alone. For the first time in 3 years, Keisha let herself lean on someone else. She stepped forward, and Stephen wrapped his arms around her, holding her while she cried out 3 years of pain and fear and loneliness. I'm so tired of being strong, she whispered against his chest. Then rest. I've got you. The legal battle that followed was brutal. Lucas and the competitor company denied everything at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. Morteca's lawyers were relentless, and within 2 weeks, the competitors settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. Lucas was facing criminal charges for corporate espionage. But it was Gloria's role that surprised everyone. During the investigation, it came out that Gloria had been the one to orchestrate the entire scheme. She'd researched Stephen's company after seeing Keisha at the summit, discovered the upcoming product launch through social media posts from Mortec employees, and convinced Lucas to use his consulting connections to infiltrate the company. The motivation wasn't money. It was jealousy. Gloria had seen Keisha, successful and confident and working for a billionaire, and couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand that the woman she'd betrayed had risen above the destruction and built something better. So she tried to tear it down. The irony was that in trying to destroy Keisha, Gloria had destroyed herself. Lucas, facing prison time, cut a deal with prosecutors and testified against Gloria and the competitor company. Their marriage imploded publicly, with Lucas claiming Gloria had manipulated him into the scheme. Gloria was arrested, charged with conspiracy to commit corporate espionage, and her carefully constructed life fell apart exactly the way Keisha's had 3 years earlier. Keisha should have felt vindicated. Should have felt satisfaction watching karma catch up to the woman who destroyed her life. But all she felt was a strange, hollow sadness. She did this to herself. Stephen said one evening as they watched the news coverage of Gloria's arrest. They were in his apartment, having dinner together, something that had become a regular occurrence over the past month. You don't need to feel bad for her. I don't feel bad for her. I feel bad for who I was 3 years ago, the woman who loved her and trusted her and never saw it coming. That woman deserved better friends. That woman was naive. That woman was hopeful. There's a difference. Stephen set down his wine glass. Keisha, can I ask you something? Always. If we could go back, if you could undo everything that happened 3 years ago, would you? Keisha thought about it carefully. A month ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. But now? I don't know. If I hadn't gone through all of that pain, I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't be here with you. I wouldn't have learned to value myself or recognize real loyalty when I see it. So you're saying I should thank Lucas and Gloria for being terrible people? She laughed. God, no. I'm saying that sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead us exactly where we're supposed to be. And I'm supposed to be here. I'm very glad you're here. They'd been dancing around their feelings for weeks, professional boundaries blurring with every late-night conversation, every shared laugh, every moment of vulnerability. But neither of them had been brave enough to name what was happening between them. Until that night. Stephen, Keisha said softly. What are we doing? What do you want us to be doing? I want to stop being afraid. I want to trust someone again. I want to believe that not everyone will hurt me. I can't promise you'll never hurt. But I can promise I'll never betray you. I'll never lie to you. And I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of your trust. Keisha stood up and moved to where he sat. I'm going to kiss you now. And if this ruins everything, if we're making a terrible mistake, we'll deal with it. But I need to know what this feels like. Keisha. She kissed him before he could finish the sentence. It was soft at first, tentative, both of them afraid of breaking whatever fragile thing existed between them. But then Stephen's hand came up to cup her face, and Keisha leaned into him, and the kiss deepened into something real and raw and honest. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Stephen rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that for months. Why didn't you? Because I was terrified of losing you. As my assistant, as my friend, as the person who makes me want to be better. I couldn't risk it. And now? Now I realize that not taking the risk is worse than any outcome. I'd rather try and fail than wonder what we could have been. They spent the night talking, kissing, slowly building something that felt fragile but real. Neither of them rushed into anything physical beyond kissing. They both needed time, needed to build trust brick by brick. In the weeks that followed, they navigated their new relationship carefully. At work, they maintained professional boundaries. After hours, they explored what it meant to open up to someone after years of protecting their hearts. Stephen told her about his ex-wife, about the business partner who'd stolen both his marriage and his trust, about the years of building walls so high that nobody could get close enough to hurt him again. Keisha told him about the wedding dress she'd burned in a parking lot after leaving LA, about the nights she'd cried herself to sleep in Seattle, about the slow, painful work of rebuilding a sense of self-worth that Lucas and Gloria had shattered. They learned each other's scars and chose to love them anyway. 3 months after Gloria's arrest, Stephen made an announcement that shocked the entire tech industry. He was stepping back from day-to-day operations at MoreTech to launch a new venture capital firm focused on funding women and minority entrepreneurs in tech. And his partner in this venture would be Keisha James. You're insane, Keisha said when he first proposed the idea. They were in his office, late evening, the city lights twinkling below them. I'm not qualified to run a VC firm. You're more qualified than half the people currently doing it. You understand business, you understand people, and you understand what it's like to have to rebuild from nothing. Those entrepreneurs need someone who gets it. Stephen, this is your money, your reputation. What if I fail? Then we fail together and try something else. But I don't think you're going to fail. I think you're going to be extraordinary. He pulled her close. I believe in you, Keisha. It's time you started believing in yourself. The announcement was made at a press conference that went viral within hours. Stephen Moore, the notoriously private billionaire, standing beside his executive assistant turned business partner, announcing a $100 million fund dedicated to underrepresented founders. The tech blogs went wild. Some praised the move as progressive and necessary. Others speculated about Stephen and Keisha's relationship, about whether this was really about business or about something else entirely. Gloria, awaiting trial, gave an interview from jail to a tabloid blog, claiming that Keisha had seduced Stephen, had manipulated her way into power and money, had stolen everything Gloria should have had. The interview was vicious and detailed, painting Keisha as calculating and cold, a woman who used her past trauma as a weapon to gain sympathy and advantage. Keisha read it on her phone while sitting in Stephen's apartment, her hands shaking with rage and hurt. She can't help herself, Stephen said, reading over her shoulder. Even facing prison, she has to try to tear you down. She's trying to rewrite history again. Make herself the victim and me the villain. Nobody who matters believes her. But people who don't know me might. People who want to believe that a black woman couldn't possibly earn her position on merit, that she must have slept her way to success. Stephen took her phone and set it aside. Then we prove them wrong. We build this firm, we fund incredible companies, and we show the world exactly what you're capable of. Not because we owe anyone an explanation, but because you deserve to have your legacy be about what you built, not what was taken from you. Keisha leaned against him, drawing strength from his certainty. When did you become so wise? When I met someone worth being wise for. The trial happened 4 months later. Keisha attended every day, sitting in the gallery, watching as prosecutors laid out Gloria's crimes in methodical detail. Lucas testified, looking broken and ashamed, admitting that Gloria had manipulated him, had convinced him that destroying Stephen's company would somehow punish Keisha for moving on. When Gloria took the stand in her own defense, she was defiant. She claimed she'd been driven by love, by the desire to protect Lucas from Keisha's vindictive nature, by fear that Keisha would use her position with Stephen to destroy their lives. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated for 6 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. Gloria was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. As the verdict was read, Gloria's eyes found Keisha in the gallery. There was hatred there, but also something else. Recognition, perhaps, that she'd destroyed everything she tried to protect. Keisha felt nothing but a quiet sense of closure. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, shouting questions about her relationship with Stephen, about the new VC firm, about whether she felt vindicated by Gloria's conviction. Stephen appeared at her side, taking her hand publicly for the first time. Ms. James has no comment on the verdict, he said firmly. But I have a statement I'd like to make. The reporters quieted, cameras focusing on him. 3 years ago, someone I care about very deeply had her life destroyed by people she trusted. She lost everything: her home, her support system, her faith in humanity. Most people would have stayed broken. But Keisha James didn't. She rebuilt herself, brick by brick, and became one of the most capable, brilliant, and resilient people I've ever known. Today's verdict isn't about revenge or vindication. It's about accountability. And it's about proving that no matter what people take from you, they can't take who you are at your core. Keisha is a partner in my new business venture not because of what happened to her, but because of who she became in spite of it. And anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. He turned to Keisha. Can we go home now? She smiled, tears in her eyes. Yeah. Let's go home. 6 months later, their VC firm announced its first round of investments. 12 companies founded by women and minorities, each one bringing innovation and fresh perspective to industries that desperately needed both. The portfolio was diverse, ambitious, and according to early projections, wildly successful. Keisha threw herself into the work, mentoring founders, negotiating terms, building the kind of supportive ecosystem she wished she'd had years ago when she dreamed of starting her own business. Stephen watched her come alive in a way she never had as his assistant. This was what she was meant to do: build, create, empower. One evening, after a particularly successful pitch meeting, Stephen suggested they take a walk along the beach. It was the same beach where they talked months ago, after the disastrous encounter with Gloria at the tech summit. Do you remember what you said to me that day? Stephen asked as they walked barefoot in the sand. I said a lot of things. I was a mess. You said you couldn't do it again. Couldn't trust someone and risk having them destroy you. I remember. Stephen stopped walking and turned to face her. And yet you did. You trusted me. You took the risk. Why? Keisha thought about it. Because you showed me that trust isn't about being certain someone won't hurt you. It's about believing that even if things get hard, they'll stay and work through it. You did that, Stephen. Every time I wanted to run, you stayed. You didn't push, didn't demand, just stayed. And slowly, I realized that maybe not everyone leaves. I'm never leaving, he said quietly. I want to make that official. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Keisha's breath caught. "I know you've been here before," Stephen said, opening the box to reveal a simple but stunning diamond ring. "I know you've stood in a position where someone made you promises they didn't keep. So I'm not going to promise you perfection or a fairy tale. I'm going to promise you honesty, respect, and partnership. I'm going to promise you that when things get hard, I'll stay and fight for us. I'm going to promise you that I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of your trust. Keisha James, will you marry me?" Keisha stared at the ring, at the man holding it, at the future stretching out before them. 3 years ago, she'd been broken, convinced she'd never love again. Now she stood on a beach in California, the city that had witnessed both her destruction and her resurrection, being offered a second chance at everything she thought she'd lost. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Stephen slipped the ring on her finger, and Keisha looked down at it, marveling at how different this moment felt from the last time someone had put a ring on her hand. This wasn't about a fairy tale or societal expectations. This was about two broken people who'd found each other and chosen to build something real. They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony overlooking the ocean. No massive guest list, no elaborate production, just the people who mattered most and two people making promises they intended to keep. Lucas sent a letter from prison, where he was serving an 18-month sentence. It was full of apologies and regrets, asking for forgiveness and wishing her well. Keisha read it once, then filed it away. She'd forgiven him, not for his sake, but for her own peace. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. Some bridges, once burned, stayed that way. Gloria sent nothing. According to mutual acquaintances, she'd retreated into bitterness, still convinced that Keisha had somehow stolen the life that should have been hers. Keisha felt nothing but pity for her. Gloria would never understand that you couldn't steal a life someone built with their own hands. You couldn't take resilience or growth or self-worth. Those things had to be earned, and Gloria had never been willing to do the work. On her wedding day, as Keisha stood beside Stephen, promising to love and honor him, she thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago. The woman who'd been so broken she couldn't imagine ever feeling whole again. That woman had been wrong. She was whole. Not because Stephen had completed her, but because she'd done the hard work of putting herself back together. The marriage wasn't about needing someone to save her. It was about choosing to share her life with someone who respected the person she'd become. The reception was intimate and joyful. Keisha's therapist from Seattle attended, smiling proudly at the woman who'd walked into her office broken and walked out ready to rebuild. Some of Stephen's business partners were there, along with several of the founders they'd funded, all of whom spoke about how Keisha had changed their lives and businesses. During the toasts, Stephen stood and raised his glass. "Most people talk about how marriage is about finding your other half," he said. "But that's not what this is. Keisha didn't need me to complete her. She was already complete when we met, already brilliant and strong and capable. What she needed was someone who could see that, respect that, and stand beside her as an equal. I'm the lucky one here. I get to spend the rest of my life with a woman who taught me that being vulnerable isn't weakness, that taking risks on people is worth it, and that love isn't about possession or control. It's about partnership. It's about showing up every day and choosing each other, even when it's hard. Keisha, you chose me when you had every reason not to trust anyone. That's a gift I'll never take for granted. Here's to us, to second chances, and to building something beautiful out of broken pieces." Keisha couldn't hold back her tears as everyone cheered. When Stephen sat back down, she leaned over and whispered, "I love you. I love you too. Always." 2 years after their wedding, the VC firm had grown exponentially. They'd funded over 50 companies, created thousands of jobs, and fundamentally changed the conversation about diversity in tech investing. Keisha was regularly invited to speak at conferences, her story of resilience and reinvention inspiring countless people who'd faced similar betrayals. She never spoke about Gloria or Lucas specifically in these talks, but she spoke about betrayal, about the choice between bitterness and growth, about how the people who hurt you don't get to define your future unless you let them. One day, she received a letter. The return address showed it was from Gloria, still in federal prison but eligible for parole soon. Keisha almost threw it away unopened, but something made her hesitate. She opened it carefully, prepared for more venom and accusations. Instead, she found something unexpected: accountability. The letter was short. Gloria admitted she'd been wrong, that jealousy and insecurity had driven her to terrible choices, that she'd spent 3 years in prison coming to terms with the fact that she'd destroyed not only Keisha's life but her own. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't ask for anything. She simply said she was sorry, and that watching Keisha's success from behind bars had taught her what real strength looked like. Keisha read the letter 3 times, then called Stephen. She apologized, Keisha said. After all this time, she actually took responsibility. How do you feel about that? Honestly? I feel nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even relief. It's just words on paper from someone who doesn't matter to my life anymore. That's probably the healthiest response you could have. Should I write back? Do you want to? Keisha thought about it. No. I think some doors are meant to stay closed. She's working on her own healing, and that's good for her. But I don't need to be part of it. Then don't be. Your peace matters more than her closure. Keisha filed the letter away with Lucas's, artifacts from a past that no longer had power over her present. 5 years after standing in that hotel room in Los Angeles, broken and shaking as she faced the people who'd betrayed her, Keisha stood in a boardroom in Silicon Valley, closing a deal that would make their VC firm one of the most influential in the industry. She was no longer afraid of success or visibility. She was no longer waiting for someone to take it all away. She'd learned that what she built with her own hands, with integrity and hard work and genuine care for others, couldn't be stolen. That evening, she came home to find Stephen in their kitchen, attempting to cook dinner and making a mess of it. They'd bought a house overlooking the bay, filled it with art and books and comfortable furniture that actually felt like home. You're terrible at this, Keisha said, laughing as she watched him struggle with pasta. I'm a billionaire. I'm supposed to have people who cook for me. You married someone who thinks cooking together is romantic. You're stuck with it now. He abandoned the pasta and pulled her close. How was the meeting? We closed the deal. The firm just doubled in value. That's incredible. We should celebrate. We should. But first, I want to tell you something. Something in her tone made him pull back slightly, concerned. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Actually, everything is very right. Stephen, I'm pregnant. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession: shock, joy, fear, then pure elation. You're serious? Very serious. We're having a baby. He picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing, and Keisha felt something she hadn't felt in years: absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The baby, a girl they named Maya, was born 9 months later. Holding her daughter for the first time, Keisha made a silent promise. This child would grow up knowing her worth. Would grow up seeing her mother as a woman who'd survived, rebuilt, and thrived. Would grow up understanding that people's actions reflected on them, not on her. Would grow up loved and secure and never doubting her place in the world. On Maya's first birthday, as they celebrated with friends and colleagues and the extended chosen family they built, Keisha looked around their home and felt gratitude wash over her. She'd lost so much 5 years ago. But in losing it, she'd found something better. She'd found herself. She'd found real love. She'd found purpose. And she'd learned the most important lesson of all, that betrayal doesn't define you. What you do after the betrayal, that's what matters. The choice to rise or stay down, to grow bitter or grow stronger, to close your heart or dare to open it again. Keisha had chosen to rise. Had chosen strength. Had chosen love. And she'd never been happier. Later that night, after the guests left and Maya was asleep, Keisha and Stephen sat on their deck, watching the sunset over the bay. Do you ever think about what your life would be like if Gloria and Lucas hadn't betrayed you? Stephen asked. Keisha considered it. Sometimes. But I don't wish it away anymore. If they hadn't done what they did, I'd probably be living in LA, married to a man who didn't really love me, still friends with a woman who was never really my friend. I'd be settling for a life that looked good on paper but felt empty. Instead, I have this. I have you, I have Maya, I have work that matters. I have a life I built on my own terms. So you're saying I should send them a thank you card? She laughed. God, no. But I'm saying that sometimes the worst betrayals lead us exactly where we're meant to be. They broke me, but breaking was what I needed to rebuild into someone stronger. Someone who knew her worth and wouldn't settle for anything less than real love and real respect. You're extraordinary, you know that? I'm just someone who refused to let pain have the last word. That's not extraordinary. That's survival. It's both. Keisha leaned her head on his shoulder, watching the California sky turn pink and orange. The same sky that had witnessed her lowest moment now witnessed her highest. The same city that had broken her heart had given her a new one. She thought about Gloria occasionally, out on parole now, trying to rebuild a life she'd destroyed through her own choices. She thought about Lucas, his reputation ruined, his marriage over, living with the consequences of his betrayal. She didn't wish them harm. She didn't wish them anything at all. They were characters in a story that no longer defined her, footnotes in a life that had moved far beyond their capacity to damage. Keisha James had been betrayed by the people she loved most. She'd lost everything. And then she'd built something better than everything she'd lost. That was the real victory. Not Gloria's imprisonment, or Lucas's regret. Not even marrying a billionaire or building a successful company. The real victory was waking up every morning without fear, trusting the person beside her, believing in her own worth, and knowing that no one could take away what she'd earned with her own resilience and strength. She was no longer the woman who'd been destroyed. She was the woman who'd risen from the destruction and created something beautiful out of broken pieces. And that made all the difference. If this story resonated with you, if Keisha's journey of resilience and redemption touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our stories of strength, survival, and second chances. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts or your own story of rising after betrayal. And if you believe in the power of choosing love over fear, hit that like button. Your engagement helps us continue sharing these powerful narratives. Thank you for watching Keisha's journey from betrayal to triumph. Remember, you are not defined by what was taken from you, but by what you choose to build afterward.